Welcome to SolidCAM Professor. I'm Sydney, your SolidCAM Professor, and in this lesson we'll be showing you how to create chain geometries for operations such as profiles, pockets, and even creating boundaries in 3D operations. In this part that you see on the screen, you'll see that there are geometries that I can create around the part over here, around the outside, around this area over here. We'll show you how to create these geometries and all the different options to create them easily. I'll start by going into my operations and add my operation, and I'll use the option of profile. Now, when I get to my geometry field, we have the option of define, to define your geometry. When I go into define geometry, the window on the left hand side opens up, which allows us to create our geometry. Now, in the window that we have over here, our first option is the name of the geometry. I can use the default if I want, or I can even change it to whatever one I want. So for example, I can change this to top step. This way I'll know exactly what this geometry is talking about. The geometry I actually want to choose is the step that's going around over here. That's the one I want to create. Now, you'll note also my chain list is empty. This is empty up until the point that I actually create a geometry itself. Now, you'll notice that there are certain buttons around the window that are disabled at this moment because they're not available until I start creating the geometry. Now, to create a chain, we actually have three different areas that we can create a chain. The first area is over here, creating it at a single intervals. I can start by choosing a curve. By curve, I mean the actual edges of the geometry itself. In other words, I can start by clicking on this line here, and as you note, when I get to that line, it actually brightens up. Simply click on it, and you'll see that it already started choosing my chain. Now, if I wanted to reverse the direction of the chain, instead of going it from this direction, as you see according to the arrow, towards that direction, over here, all I have to do is simply click on this button on the side now, which is now active because I started creating my chain. Simply clicking on it, I reverse the direction. Now, if I want to continue on with the chain, I simply flip around a little and click on the next chain over there, and I can continue on from one step to the next. Now, if by chance I actually go and click and say on this line over here, it won't accept that because a chain must be continuous. So I have to continue on with that chain. And the same thing over here. Now, if for some reason this is all I want, and I just want to finish creating this chain, I simply click on Accept Chain, and we have now an open chain around the part. If I were to take the top view, you'd actually see the chain going from this point over here all the way down to this point over there. Now, this geometry that I have here, this chain that I have here, I should say, if I want to do a replacement, I can simply right-click and say Replace. If I want to edit it, to continue working on it, I'll simply say Edit. I can reverse the direction over here. I can even rename the chain itself. I can delete, do whatever I want. Let's go into Edit right now. I want to continue working a chain, and the program just asks me if I want to continue on editing. I'll say yes. Now, let's say I want to choose the option of curve plus closed corners. What curve plus closed corners does is simply, if I take let's say I want to have a geometry that's going, say, from this line to this line, but straight this way and then turn this way. In other words, just working at the intersection of those two lines. I'll simply click on the option Curve plus Close Corners, and I'll click on this line here. You'll note that the geometry was automatically closed around this area over here. And I can continue on as I'm going around the part. And I can continue on closing the geometry in that fashion, as shown here. Another option that we have here is also point to point. By choosing point to point, I simply click on any point I want to get to, and the geometry will go directly to that point, disregarding anything as far as the part itself. This is literally going from one point to the next point, and that's exactly the way it works, according to that particular toolpath that I'm creating by point to point. I'll simply disregard all these changes that I've made, and I'll go back to my original chain. Another option that we have in creating chains, which is, by the way, not used too often in this particular case, is something called arc by points. What arc by points allows you to do is to create a chain on an arc up until a specific point on the arc. The reason why we have that is simple. Sometimes I want to create, let's say, a chain. Let's say we'll take this arc, but I don't want to do it on the entire arc. I only want to get to, say, up to a specific point on the arc. Now, if I choose curve, it'll take the entire arc. If I choose point to point, it'll go directly from one point to the next point, and I won't have an arc. So what we can do is we can have arc by points. By arc by points, what I do is I actually choose 3 points. 3 points automatically creates an arc through those 3 points. So let's say I'll choose my first point at the beginning of the arc itself. At the bottom you'll note it says now pick the next point. So I'll simply click on anywhere between those 2 points. I'll say over here. And my third point will be at the point that I want to get to, up until here. Now I've created a geometry that's not on the entire arc, rather only on part of the arc itself. In our next lesson, we'll be talking about creating chains automatically and using the option of multi-chain. Thank you for joining us on SolidCAM Professor. Take care and have a nice day.